Well, my career background is that of a medical nutrition therapist. I have worked at Nebraska Medicine since 1999 as a medical nutrition therapist, specializing in cancer and HIV. As a dietitian, I've been very involved in several professional organizations. The ones I've been most active in are the Nebraska Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and then nationally, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. And what got me interested in the policy realm is my work with them. I've worked at both the state and federal levels to advocate for food, nutrition, and health-related policy. Also just have enjoyed politics in general growing up. Sat around the dinner table with my parents growing up, talking about politics and world events. So I've always paid attention, and when the opportunity to apply for appointment came up, as a concerned citizen, I stepped up to the plate and put my hat in the ring. What separates me from the other two candidates, obviously, I'm a conservative. I have conservative values. I'm a fiscal conservative. I think that here in the state of Nebraska, we pay way too much in taxes, and I think a lot of that has to do with we're spending too much money. So I think we need to look at government and see how much money we're spending that isn't necessary. I think there's a lot of bureaucracy that hurts us as far as the small business owner and preventing people from becoming entrepreneurs. And I want to do things that empower people. Those are two of my main concerns. The other thing is my healthcare background. I know that a lot of people are concerned about the cost of healthcare. It's not just about health insurance. It's also the cost of healthcare. And I think we need to work on what can we do to reduce healthcare costs and make those people that are working hard be able to use their money and spend it on the things they need, whether it's healthcare or housing and things like that, education for their children. So my big thing is trying to maximize people's paychecks, because I don't think that the government should be the one spending their money. I think they should be able to spend their money as they choose. I don't believe that I have the background to say what is exactly, day to day the best way to teach students. But I think we really need to look at our education system and see what we could do better for students. One thing that I would like to see is a little bit more of an emphasis on what are we doing for those kids that are falling behind, and when they're in school, they're in high school and heading towards graduation, they're struggling with their grades, and what is it we can do to make them a productive citizen after graduation and get them into the workforce and have them making a decent wage. And I think that it's well known that a lot of our trades, there's job shortages, and we need to get people into trades. And so I think a lot of times we hear academia talking about needing to get kids into college, and I'm not saying that we don't and that college is a bad thing, but I think there's a segment of our students that are not meant to go to college, and I think if we can get them interested in maybe some tech trades or more trade type jobs, that would allow them better paying jobs. If we could do things with our curricula to allow them to do some training while they're in high school, keep them interested, keep them stimulated, so that when they do graduate, they've got a good job. Other things I think are important are school choice, because I think we need to realize that not all kids learn the same and thrive in different types of learning environments. So whether it's homeschooling, whether it's public schools or private schools, I think we need to do things to facilitate school choice.
I formerly served as the representative from the area, from District 7, for 7 years. I was appointed by Governor Mike Johans in 2001 and served 2 terms. and term limited out in 2008. Um, my family is from South Omaha originally, continue to reside in South Omaha. My dad was a union meat packer, and then he took out a small business loan back in the early 60s and opened up a small business in South Omaha called Dinkers, and that small business has continued operating continuously now for 51 years. My mom was a worker at what was previously the Western Electric out on L Street, and she had a 32-year career there through various corporate identities. I think she retired under the AT&T point at the old Western Electric plant. Served South Omaha then as a probation officer I was a probation officer for 12 years. 8 of those 12 years was served in South Omaha. I was actually the first probation officer when we were growing in the downtown courthouse office. Unfortunately, I guess you can say, the caseloads became so large that the district began evaluating and assessing community-based offices for the probation department, which made a great deal of sense. And the first community-based probation office that was opened in Douglas County was in South Omaha. It was on 24th and N. And I'm proud to say is myself and Mary Vicek, who is now the chief juvenile probation in Douglas County, were the first Douglas County probation officers to occupy a satellite office within the adult probation office. And I served there then for 8 years, became a supervisor in that capacity my last 2 years, supervising about 10 or 11 probation officers and the support staff. And it was while I was working at the probation department that I received a call one day from Senator John Hilgert, who was serving as a District 7 probation officer. And he asked me, he said, "Are you going to be a probation officer for the rest of your life?" And my response to John was that the offers weren't exactly pouring in at that time. But anyway, to make a real long story short, a lot of individuals in the community recommended that I put in for a vacancy for the District 7 office, because John Hilgert had accepted the position with Nebraska Veterans Affairs to work in the administration. And I think it was because of my community service, parish council president, sports club president in the district, and a lot of community service that a lot of individuals in the community recommended that I apply for the appointment. Governor Johans then did appoint me. I believe it was December of 2001, and we successfully ran 2 races to continue that representation for District 7. Young man by the name of Jeremy Norquist had worked for me, and he decided to run for the seat to succeed me after term limits. Worked hard to get Jeremy elected, and he then subsequently served 2 terms. He recently left to work for Representative Ashford in his DC office. So that's pretty much a summary. I think what separates me substantially is the significant connection and roots I have to South Omaha. Like I said earlier, I was born and raised in South Omaha, continue to choose to live in South Omaha, raised my family in South Omaha. As I indicated earlier, my father had a business in South Omaha, continues to be run. It's now down to the 3rd generation of Sinowickies that are operating the small business in South Omaha. And I think the significant connection to the area, my long history of community service in South Omaha distinctly separates me from the other candidates. I was born and raised in a working class environment, continued with that advocacy for working people through my service, both in community service in the community and in my elected positions with the legislature. Very, very strong labor proponent in the legislature, and as a result of that, we're receiving a lot of endorsements from organizations that support and advocate for working families, and we're very appreciative of that support. had a reputation in the legislature for support and advocacy for working families. I'm proud of that well-established record, and also we got things done in the Nebraska legislature. I was fortunate to have been elected by my colleagues as the chairman of a committee, the retirement committee. At that time, if I recall correctly, I was the only Democrat in the Nebraska legislature that was chairman of a committee for my last 2 years, which I think shows that we accumulated broad-based support from across the body, from more conservative individuals and more liberal individuals. To have been able to have ascended to a committee chairmanship in my last 2 years, I think speaks to kind of my moderate position on a lot of issues and my support for the working class individualism. And we were successful in maintaining our retirement systems in a very responsive way in terms of both the workers and the taxpayers. And so I think the overall legacy of the overall record that I've established, my roots, significant roots and connection to South Omaha, separate the Sinowicki candidacy. Would I seek to change the way children are educated in District 7? No, I think that's the teachers' responsibility. I've been endorsed by Nebraska teachers, and I would rely upon their advice and counsel on maybe the way that they're taught or the curriculum. That's entirely a classroom teacher question, and I would rely upon their expertise, particularly as the dad of a couple teachers, and I would rely upon their advice and counsel relative to the way kids are taught. But here's what I would do, and what I advocated for when I was in the legislature for my previous 7 years, and I put bills in to do this, and that would be to increase the attention that we give poverty within our education funding formula. The legislature very wisely this past session has begun to do that in a more significant way. I tried and put bills in to more formidably recognize poverty within our education formula, because teachers in the environments in a lot of, particularly the elementary schools in District 7, are dealing with children that come from families from entrenched poverty areas. Each of the elementary schools in District 7 has a free or reduced lunch rate which exceeds 90%. And I think those teachers in those classrooms and those environments are in demonstrated need of more tools and resources. They're in need of smaller class sizes, a more focus on early education to overcome these poverty barriers. In no way, shape, or form am I making excuses, but what I am saying is that if I'm reelected as the District 7 Senator, I will continue my advocacy on behalf of teachers to make sure that, particularly in environments from entrenched poverty, that those teachers have the tools and resources that are necessary to mitigate those barriers.
That's a great question. I'd say the first thing is I care very deeply about community, and I care very deeply about South Omaha and downtown, and I feel like I identify with it. My parents were immigrants from Peru, and I think that South Omaha is a very immigrant community from way, way back. The Czechs, the Italians, and you name it, to now, Latino, Mexican American immigrants, and we have Sudanese immigrants. And being a first generation in this country, being a first generation college graduate, it's part of me that I identify with, and I want to make sure to keep in mind when I'm thinking about bills and laws that are going to help impact the lives of our working families. And so I want to make sure people know that that's where I come from, and I don't forget that, and that's the way I'm going to make sure to lead. That's my perspective and lens. I actually don't focus too much on my other candidates. I focus on the message that I'm sending, which is when about 1,700 to 2,000 people are voting in a primary, it's not acceptable that we have that level of community engagement or civic participation. As elected officials, our job is to make sure we are engaging people in the community. We are we are communicating with them, that we're going door to door, that we're being honest about our messages, and we are trying to get more people caring about not politics, but caring about the community. When more people have a voice and more people are informed on issues and can have a direct line to elected officials, that's good for our community. When less people know who their elected officials are, or can identify who they are, and feel comfortable enough to talk to them, call them, message them, that's not good. And my campaign is about reaching more people, reaching more voters, reaching more people in the community, so that they feel a direct line to their voice being heard. And in this district being one of the most diverse districts in the state, being a majority minority population, we need to make sure more individuals that have been disenfranchised, have less of a voice, have more of a voice. Because if more people don't have a seat at the table, then we're not doing our job. I don't necessarily would change the way that students are taught in the district, because it's going to be beyond the district. It'll be the entire state. What I will want to do is make sure that we are thinking about how do we improve a system by utilizing the voices of those doing the day-to-day work, which is our teachers, our paraprofessionals, administration staff, and also being asset-based about the people that are in the community-based organizations, parents, families, figure out ways to elevate their voices to inform policy, while also making sure that we are beginning to do more to address the needs of low-income communities, of our English language learners, of our special needs students. When we're able to improve communication, improve lines of support to those individuals, while also thinking about how to better be effective about the way that we are funding education, we're going to have a better education system. But there's no one thing that's going to improve education, but I think it requires parent and family engagement, community engagement, supporting our teachers, and figuring out ways to find additional funds for our education system are going to improve our system in the state of Nebraska.